Hey guys, Ellie from Excellence Property Management here. Now it is nearly Christmas time, and it is around this time of year where we do have a lot of tenant changeovers. So in December, January, we have a lot of tenants who are moving out, relocating, and new tenants moving in. So this means if you have an investment property, you may be looking for a new tenant, either now or early in the new year. And I just wanted to, I guess, cover the topic again of how the wrong tenant can cost you an absolute fortune. Because basically, our theory at Excellence is if you do all of the work up front, and you put all of your effort into getting the right tenant for your property, then the tenancy obviously is a lot smoother, but you get the best return on investment. There's little hassles and it's very stress free for you. Now, I get that it's really frustrating, particularly around this time, because financially you just can't afford to have a vacancy. So the property's been sitting there for a few weeks, you've lost this rent, and a tenant comes along. And look, they're okay, but they may not be quite the ideal tenant. So you take the risk and take them anyway. Or worse yet, if your property manager's not experienced, they may not have picked up that this may not be the right tenant, and they may encourage you to put them in to get the property rented. So the first thing when you're going through this process is begin with the end in mind. So understand what are your rights if things don't go well. And unfortunately in Queensland, it is quite a difficult legislation in the sense that if you're going to evict your tenant, to do it quickly, it has to be what we call a serious breach. So a serious breach is things like when the tenant doesn't pay their rent on time, and they continue to not pay for a long period of time, or they do some sort of like structural or malicious damage to your property. Now that is a worst case scenario, but if that was to happen, have a read of the blog I've written because I've actually explained that process for you. But from start to finish and getting your tenant out, if it's for a rent issue, you're still going to cop about a month's lost rent before you can, move that tenant on. But the worst thing for owners is when the tenant's just not quite right. So they're not in a serious breach of their tenancy, but they're a non-serious breach. So they're either not keeping it clean and tidy, or they're not looking after the lawns and gardens, that kind of stuff. And whilst it doesn't seem to be that bad, it is really frustrating, and it can actually cause issues with, I guess, the capital value of your home and impose more maintenance on you. So the best way to explain this is a few years ago, I had a tenant in a property, and the tenant wasn't keeping the property clean. So I would go in to do a routine inspection, and there would be about a centimetre coat of dust on the carpet. That's how often the tenant did not, vacuum the floors and do that kind of stuff. She always had her dog inside the house, so there was dog hair everywhere. And you could see that the dog was doing little scratches and stuff on the walls and doors. So whilst there is a bond in place, and obviously the tenant isn't technically abiding by their lease agreement, obviously this is caused damage to the home. So even though, we could professionally steam clean those carpets, they may still need to be replaced. And we wanted to do everything we could, obviously, to get that tenant out and a new tenant in. So we had issued the tenant 2 or more breaches for the same reason within a 12-month period, which is what the legislation is. And we applied to QCAT to have the lease terminated and the tenant moved on. And this is where you go to court and it's heard by a judge. And the judge would not allow us to remove the tenant because the judge didn't believe that the breaches were serious enough to put someone out of a home. Now, obviously, that was really, really upsetting for the landlord. So we had to wait another 6 months for the lease to expire before we could move that tenant on. By the time we got the property back, it needed a full bond clean, the carpets needed to be replaced, the walls needed to be painted, and this is stuff that could have been avoided if, there wasn't that much hard wear and tear on the property over that period of time. So obviously this stuff wasn't covered under insurance because it wasn't considered accidental or malicious damage, and the bonds in Queensland are only a maximum of 4 weeks of lost rent. So it actually ended up costing the owner a couple of grand to get their property back, and none of this was covered by insurance. Now, if we'd have gotten the right tenant in the first time, then we could have completely avoided this situation. And I don't mean that you've never got to paint, you never have to paint or you never need to replace your carpets and whatnot, but it can be avoided by getting in the right tenant because they don't do as much wear and tear. They, absolutely abide by the lease. You get the property back clean and tidy. But not only that, you can keep them long term as well, so you don't experience things like vacancies. So that's why it's really, really important to understand how it can cost you a fortune if you do get the wrong tenant in your property, and why it's so important to get the right tenant in from the beginning and to put all that effort in. So I've got a couple of other blogs that do link into this. One is, how to get the right tenant, and the other one is about having landlord's insurance, so making sure you're protected and understanding that. I hope this video has been helpful and just makes you a bit more aware now if you're going to re-rent your property and you are looking for a new tenant. And look, if you need any more pointers or you want to find out how we do it, give us a call at Excellence Property Management. We'd definitely like to help you out. I hope you guys have a lovely Christmas and a happy new year. Thank you. Bye.